Hello everyone, this is Shop and welcome to chapter 8 of the microservices with Spring Boot tutorial. So in this chapter, we're going to try to understand what API gateway is and what all functionalities API gateway can perform and why we need API gateway in the first place. So let's suppose we are trying to build a website for a banking institution, and there might be multiple resources present inside our banking website, and those resources can be fetched by different groups of users. So first we have a resource called homepage, and this might be tied to a microservice at the backend, which would be available for all clients. So no matter whether a client is logged in or not, she or he should be able to fetch or should be able to interact with this resource and should be able to view this resource on the homepage, right? So this is served by one microservice, and then we have an account service. So this would be available for a logged in user. So if a user provides valid credentials, provides valid username and password, and logs into the system or logs into the website, she or he should be able to view the accounts that she or he is entitled to or that belong to that person. So this resource should be available to a logged in user. And then we might have another resource called user accounts. So this resource would be available for a bank staff. So a bank staff should be able to view accounts of other people as well. All people that are enrolled with a bank, that have accounts with a bank, should be available to a bank user, and a bank user must be able to enter an account number and should be able to view the account details for that account number. So this resource should be available to a bank user. So first resource should be available to everyone, and the second resource should be available to an authentic user, and the third resource should be available to an authentic user who is authorized to view that resource or who is authorized to interact with that resource. So these kind of functionalities can be taken care of by the API gateway, right? So API gateway can provide authentication and authorization functionalities. So it can check whether the credentials that are entered by a user are correct or not, and let that particular user interact or talk to this resource. And the API gateway can also perform authorization checks and see whether the user is authorized enough to access this resource or not, or whether it is indeed a bank user who is trying to access this resource or not. So all these kind of functionalities can be handled by the API gateway. The API gateway also provides a single endpoint or URL for the client-facing APIs, and then maps the requests to a group of internal microservices. So there might be multiple instances of the homepage microservice running inside the microservices ecosystem, or there might be multiple instances of the account service running inside the microservices ecosystem, and we might want to provide, and they might be running on different URLs. They might be using different ports, they might be using different hosts, and it would be difficult for the client to know all the hosts and ports for all the microservices that are inside our microservices ecosystem. And again, these are dynamic hosts and ports that our microservices are running on, so they keep changing with time, and it would be difficult for the clients to directly interact with the microservices. So what the API gateway does is it provides a single endpoint or URL for the client-facing APIs, and then maps the requests to a group of internal microservices. So the API gateway hides the actual host and port on which the microservices are running, and the clients can choose a single URL or single endpoint to talk to the various microservices that we have inside our microservices ecosystem, right? And the API gateway can also ensure the requests are HTTPS and are using the SSL certificates. So it also provides security mechanisms or security checks at the API gateway, and makes sure that the requests are using HTTPS and have the SSL certificates. Also, the API gateway can act as a load balancer. So we might be having multiple instances of a particular service inside the microservices ecosystem, and the API gateway can act as a load balancer and map or redirect requests to a particular instance of a microservice. The API gateway can also act as a request cache. There might be services for which we would not want to hit the database every time a request is made. So the bank might be having different kinds of products. So the bank might be having different kinds of products. It might be having loan. It might be providing home loans. It might be providing car loans, personal loans, and various other products. So for these kind of information, every time we would not want to hit the database because the database calls are expensive, and we might want to cache the result of a request inside the API gateway, and for further or subsequent requests will provide the result from the cache instead of hitting the microservice and hitting the database every time. So API gateway can also cater to caching requirements. The API gateway can also be used to monitor requests and responses and display the average latencies for performance monitoring. So a certain page might be taking a lot of time to load, and we might need to monitor all the services or all the microservices that are responsible for displaying that page or that are responsible for rendering that page, and API gateway might help us monitor the response and request times and display the average latencies of the APIs or of the microservices inside the microservices ecosystem. So those are some of the functionalities that we can achieve using an API gateway, and these are some of the reasons because of which we need an API gateway. So that is all for this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy, please give it a thumbs up, and thanks for watching.